some yeses. Do you think it's going to pop? Maybe. All right. Let's find out. So let me turn on my pump here. Keep an eye right on my chamber. Keep an eye on the balloon. See what's happening to it. So my balloon is getting bigger. Don't worry. I'm not going to let it pop. I see people covering their ears. I'm not going to let it pop. But you can see it got bigger because I've taken the air that was pushing on the balloon, the pressure, away, and the air that was inside the balloon was able to stretch out. Because we had all these air molecules that were cramped up inside there. But when we take the air away, it's not have that atmospheric pressure pushing on it like it does on our skin. So it was able to expand. So it had more room. Those molecules weren't cramped up like they are normally in space or here on Earth. So if this were your lungs, and it didn't get stopped by me turning off the pump, what do you think would happen to your lungs? Might pop, right? Yeah, you might have that bad explosion there if that didn't happen. But I kept it from doing thing. Now I can add the air back in, and it goes back to the size it was before. So we've added the air back. The pressure is now pushing against it again. Where in space there was no air, in our vacuum there was nothing pushing against it. All right, now we're going to look at our next thing. We're going to look at your blood in space. So I have a little sample here. Mine's green, kind of looks like an alien's blood. But I'm going to put that in there, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn on the vacuum, pull the air out. We'll have the liquid inside there. What do you guys think is going to happen this time? Think about it to yourselves, just real quick. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to evaporate and go away? It's going to disappear? Do you think it might be, it's going to get bigger, like the balloon did? It's going to start bubbling, maybe? So you can think about all those things you think it might be doing. I'm going to see if I can zoom in. No, zoom. I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit more for you guys so you can see that there. All right, so you're going to keep a close eye on the water this time to see what's happened. And this would represent what would happen to our blood if we're in space without that spacesuit on. How would our blood react? So keep a close eye on it. It takes a little bit of time for this to happen, but in just a second we'll start seeing something that kind of looks like bubbles. And there it goes. It's starting to bubble a little bit on the top. It's probably hard for you guys to see, but in a second you're going to see more and more bubbles. And what did it do? I had to stop it because I didn't want it to spill out. But we had bubbles. It was boiling. What we would think of, like if you put rice on to cook or something on to cook, like pasta, and the water gets hot and bubbly, it starts boiling, right? So I put a vacuum in here. I can't take this lid off. It's very tight because I created a vacuum in there. And that vacuum was because I was pulling the air from the chamber. So inside water, which is what I have in there right now, and blood, you have the same type of stuff in your lungs or in your blood. Same thing, we have oxygen, right? The H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. So the oxygen, the air was trying to get out of that water. Same thing would happen to your blood in space. That oxygen is going to try to get out of there. So do you think I heated this up? Is it hot now? How many of you think it might be hot now? You can raise your hand or just nod. Is it hot? No. I see a couple of yeses maybe, but mostly no's. All right, so let's see. I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to grab it out of there and see if it's hot. I have to let the air slowly back in this time so it doesn't tump over on me. I always get nervous. It might be hot. No, it's not hot. It's the same temperature it was before, which is actually cold because I took it out of the water fountain. So it's not hot at all because we did not heat it up. We changed the air pressure. We took the air pressure away. So those air molecules inside the water wanted to come out too, just like when we expanded our balloon. That air stretched out. Same thing with that. So your blood would kind of do the same thing in space. All right, my next one's just kind of fun, but it shows everything that we were just talking about as well. So this is my little friend. His name is Marsh. And I'm going to put Marsh in here. What do you think going to happen to Marsh? Do you think he's going to like this too much? I don't think he's going to like it too much. So let's see. Let me zoom it in for you. So Marsh is in there, and he's made of marshmallows. And marshmallows have a lot of air in them. So you can only take a guess of what's going to happen to my friend Marsh. When I take and add the air away from him, let's see what happens. What's happening? You can see Marsh is getting bigger. He was getting bigger there and growing because we were pulling the air from, again, around the chamber out and making Marsh bigger. So he's a lot bigger than he was before, right? Yeah, and he's still in a vacuum. I can't get him out. He's stuck in there. So I have to add the air back. Oh, and when I add the air back, he gets really small. So he went from being a happy marshmallow, now he's not so happy. So he's sad. But we'll put him in there again and do it one more time and talk about why it did that. Because again, we took the air from around it. Marshmallows have air inside them, those air pockets, and those air pockets expanded when we put Marsh in the vacuum chamber. As you can see, he's starting to get a little big again. Not doing it too much, but he's still getting big again because there's still a little air left in there. All those air pockets didn't pop. So some of those air pockets are wanting to get big again. But he's not going to get too big. I'm going to stop him there. Do it again. But you can see all those little air pockets now, he's all smushed and thin instead of being nice and fluffy marshmallows, because the air pockets popped, the air couldn't get back in there again. So Marsh became a little deflated. All right, let me zoom back out here so you get to me. So these are telling you why we have to wear it, because there's no oxygen in space. The astronauts can't survive without having that, and there's no air pressure as well. So they have to wear a spacesuit anytime in their space to make sure that they can survive. Now, just like the suits I have behind me that were worn in different programs. Now, one thing we can look at is, let me show you. I'm back to my presentation here. We talked about the air pressure. We've talked about the water stimulating our liquid, what would happen to that, and our friend Marsh, who didn't fare so well. Now, spacesuits, they've had different designs of spacesuits all throughout the space program, trying to figure out exactly the best thing, and it really depends on what they're using it for, what's going to be the best idea. So like the first one, to give you an idea of sort of the Gemini spacesuit and what they were when they went in Mercury and Gemini. Just a basic suit. They were just going right outside this capsule doing a spacewalk, so they didn't need a lot for having those. The next one is one that we used for the space shuttle and for the space station. We're going to kind of look a little bit at that one in detail because that's what they use today. And the last one is just a funny kind of concept one of an idea that they might have for a spacesuit for another planet. And I don't think that one would work very well, do you? I don't think so. So let's talk about what it's like for the astronauts to get dressed. The spacesuit that the astronauts wear weighs a lot here on Earth. It weighs about 113, 136 kilograms. It's made of 14 different layers and several different parts to it as well, as you can see in the picture here. There's TV cameras, lights, upper torso, lower torso, cooling garments. A lot of different components go into that spacesuit. So it's very heavy here on Earth. But in space, they don't feel that weight because they're in 0G. The 14 layers that it has, that the outer layers and the innermost layers, are all made to help protect the astronauts from space debris, things that could be floating around in space that might accidentally hit their spacesuit. And that's something you guys are going to be doing with your activity there in just a few minutes, is creating a spacesuit to help protect your balloon astronaut. Now, the pressure garment is one of the layers that you see on there. It's kind of like a balloon, you would think. So it's protecting them from the lack of air pressure. So that bladder layer does that. They've got a lot of different layers depending on what ripstop things to help protect it from getting meteorites tearing it, mylar to protect from the heat and the cold. So a lot of different ones to all protect them from when they're up in space. withstand something about the size of a quarter hitting it, a U.S. quarter, hitting it, about 6.7 kilometers, to be able to create that kind of hole before it would damage anything for the astronauts. So it's made very well to help protect the astronauts. Now, when they're first getting dressed in their astronaut spacesuit, they do have to put on their underwear, but they can't wear underwear like we do. They have to wear special underwear. It's called the WAG, the Waist Absorbency Garment. And that's basically something you wore when you were a baby. It was a diaper. But because they're doing a spacewalk for a long time, they're out there for 4 to 6 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, they can't easily go back inside and go to the bathroom. So they have to have that on just in case they need it. So that helps them out with that. And then underneath that, or on top of that, they wear this interesting looking garment here called a cooling garment. And it has tubes running all through the garment. And this is their air conditioning and their heater. So the water runs through the tubes, and it either, depending on the amount of water they're flowing through there, makes them a little cooler or a little warmer while they're doing the spacewalk, so they don't get too hot or too cold. Because when they're doing a spacewalk, they're going once around the Earth every 90 minutes. Okay? So they see a sunrise and a sunset, so it gets hot and cold, hot and cold. So there's extreme temperature changes that they have to deal with when doing the spacewalk. So they have to have the suit, one, have all the layers to protect it, and two, have this cooling garment to help them from getting too hot, too cold. And there's the back of the garment. You can see more of the hose. Then they put on their pants, just like we would put on our pants. This is their lower body coverage, their lower torso. It also has the 14 layers. It has some boots attached to it, sort of like shoes, but they don't really need those for walking. But they do have to put themselves into a foot restraint anytime they need to stay in one spot so they don't float away from that area. Then they put on the upper part, which is their hut, their hard upper torso, and that gives them protection on the upper part. You can see by looking at the picture on there, it is very hard. It's a fiberglass type protection because all of your vital organs are in the upper part of your body. So we want to protect all your vital organs and make sure that nothing gets hurt. Our heart, our lungs, all of that by a meteorite hitting those, or micrometeorite. So those have a little extra protection where the arms and the legs may not need as much protection as our vital organs do. And it also has a control model on front to help control everything. There's a backpack. This is our primary life support system, PLSS for short, that has our emergency oxygen. It has the oxygen we use for the suit. Pressurization, so it has the devices to pressurize the suit. Has carbon dioxide removal. You're doing the spacewalk for 4 to 6 hours. You got to get the carbon dioxide that you're breathing out from your area. It's got the water for the garment is inside that container, and also your power for your battery. So it's basically everything you need to control your spacesuit is in that backpack. Once you get the pants on and the top on, you connect them together. There's a metal ring in the middle that connects them and makes them pressurized so that the air pressure stays in the suit and doesn't escape. And you have to make sure you get a nice good seal and lock on those. And then they're going to put on a cap. This is called the Snoopy Cap as a nickname. Basically, it is their headset. It has earphones and microphones so that they can hear and talk to mission control and to the other astronauts while they're out doing that spacewalk. So it's very important for them to do that so they can hear what's going on. And it got the nickname from Snoopy. And Snoopy used to fight the Red Baron, and he wore a cap similar to that. So that's where they came up with the nickname as Snoopy Cap for that. And then you need to put your gloves on. Gloves are very important in the way that they're made for the astronauts to make sure that they can get a good grip on things. So they can pick things up while they're doing their spacewalk and grab onto them. So you can see it's got a bumpy surface on the bottom there, and that's for gripping and holding on to things. That's why it's not just the white material like you see on the rest of it. It has that ripply effect to grip things so they can work with tools, because they did spacewalks to help build the space station and put things together. They're constantly doing spacewalks on the space station to add new things or repair a minor issue that might be going on. And they have basically the joints on them. There's different layers to the suit, so there'll be like a glove type layer that you can adjust to fit your hand really well. And that has joints in in it so that you can move your fingers just like we would. And then it has a mirror on the wrist, which is very interesting. The mirror on the wrist is so that you can see on the front of your spacesuit, like you can kind of see there's a bunch of different holes and conjunctions here. There's a little box on the front of the astronaut spacesuit that controls the spacesuit. So you can't look down in your helmet and see it. So they've got the mirror on the wrist. Everything is written backwards so that they can see what they need to see for controlling their spacesuit. Then we've got the cuffs. They've got to lock them in place just like we did everything else, making sure those locking mechanisms are good. And it also twists, the locking mechanism does, so that they can move their hands back and forth. And as well as the waist, it's got a little bit of movement so they can move around. So it's not just stiff and you have to walk like, Frankenstein. You're able to actually move a little bit of flexibility. It's still not a lot, but a little bit so that they can work in space. And they have a watch that they put on so they can keep track of how long they've been out there and what the time is. Then they put on their helmet, another important part, helping protect the head. That's another hard surface. So the helmet is hard, just like the upper torso underneath is, to help protect their head, because that's another vital organ we want to make sure is protected, right? They don't want that to be injured. So they've got different things on the helmet. They've got cameras on the side of the helmet. There'll be 2 cameras so that they can see, and mission control can see what they're doing. There's also lights for when they're on the night side of the Earth. They can turn their headlights on and be able to see. And then they've got a visor. You can see in the top corner picture there's a gold visor. That's their sunglasses. So when they're on the bright side or the day side of the Earth, they can put that down and be able to see well, because you don't want to have the sun too bright in your way so you can't see what you're doing with your work. And then there's just the clear glass that stays down all the time. That can't be moved up or down at all. How they get ready for doing these spacewalks, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of training to be able to do them. You can't just jump out there and go do a spacewalk without having any practice or training on how to do it. So they have a lot of work they have to do. The astronauts go into a large swimming pool. It's the size of maybe a 4-story building. So it's a very deep pool, and it's very big. It's bigger than any Olympic-sized swimming pool. Basically, inside it are pieces of the space station, full sections of the space station, made out of special material that won't rust underwater. But the astronauts will be lowered down on that little platform you see there in a special spacesuit, very similar to the one they wear up in space, except for this one, they have to add weights to it. They add the weights so that they can go under the water and stay in the middle. What we call neutrally buoyant. Means they don't sink very far to the bottom. They don't go all the way to the top. They kind of stay in the middle on doing that and can do the spacewalk. So it gives them that feeling of being in space, because here on Earth we don't have a room we can turn off gravity. How many of you guys think that there's a zero-G room? There's a room we can just turn gravity off for NASA. Good, I don't see any hands up. Well, NASA can't turn gravity off. You can't do that here on Earth. So the best way to train the astronaut is in this swimming pool. But they can't move around themselves when they're in the pool. They actually have divers. You can see the guys behind the ones on the top. And the divers will move them around in the pool, because it would take too much energy if they tried to swim while in there in the spacesuit. So the divers move them to the position they need to be in, but they can work with the tools that they're going to use in space and practice doing that spacewalk that way. So it's very handy for them to be able to do that. And then of course they can go out there and do their spacewalk after a lot of training. For every 1 hour that they spend in space doing a spacewalk, they train at least 10 hours inside that swimming pool. So if they have done a 6-hour spacewalk, they've been in that pool at least 60 hours training on how to do that spacewalk. And that's just the pool training. That doesn't include any training outside the pool, where they were getting familiar with the equipment they're installing on the space station or the tools that they're working with. So they do practicing outside the pool, and then in the pool as well, a lot of practicing getting ready to go out and do that. And when they do the spacewalks, they could be, like I said, installing new pieces to the space station. When we were building the space station, they were actually constructing it, taking the pieces and connecting them together, doing spacewalks. They add new pieces to the space or update old pieces that need updated as well. So spacewalks are very important. We do them for the space station. And of course, when we go to Mars, they'll be doing a lot of spacewalks around the surface of Mars, trying to learn about the surface more than what we're just learning from the rovers that have got there. They are constantly looking at new designs for spacesuits. This is one of the concepts they're thinking about. You can see it has a little different than the other one because the spacesuit I showed you, we're talking about how they got dressed. They put the pants on and then they put the top on, the hood on. For this one, you actually climb into from the back. So it's a lot different, but then you can see the helmet looks a little different as well. And the boots have more of a rough surface on it, like a regular shoe would have, because you will be walking on the surface of Mars, or back on the moon, which we're looking at going to as well. Now this concept, though, had a little inspiration from this right here. Doesn't it look similar to Buzz Lightyear? So I think the engineers at NASA got a little inspiration from Buzz Lightyear on this spacesuit. But they are coming up with a lot of different ideas and designs for spacesuits that we can use in the future to help astronauts out. They're trying to figure out how can we do these spacesuits for the astronauts where it's easier for them to move around, where they have more mobility, so they can bend down and easily pick up rocks. Whereas the moon, they had to use grabbers to bend down and get the rocks. They didn't want them falling down when we went to the moon in Apollo because they would have trouble getting back up. And some astronauts did accidentally fall down and figured out how to get up. So they weren't able to bend easily and move easily. So we want to have even sleeker suits that aren't as bulky and aren't as big for the astronauts to wear when we go to the other planets and back to Mars or wherever else we may decide to go. So the astronauts really need all of these spacesuit technology to be able to do that. But it takes a lot of layers still with the current materials we have, but they are developing new materials that can withstand those strikes, micrometeorites more than they. So we're going to see how successful you guys might be at making a spacesuit. Do you think you guys can create a spacesuit for your astronaut? Maybe? Yes? Does anybody have any questions before I get you guys started on your activity? No questions? All right, so is everybody doing one of the astronauts? Do you have your materials ready? You're going to use your materials and create a spacesuit for your astronaut so that if we send a micrometeorite for it, it's not going to get damaged or pop. So you're going to have different, what type of materials do you guys have? What type of materials do they have? So I see you have your balloons. Do you have aluminum foil, or is that wax paper maybe? Do you have some, like maybe wax paper type things, or aluminum foil, cloth? So figure out, try to pick at least 3 or 4 different types of materials, wrap them around your balloon and tape it. Make sure you tape it well because you want to protect that balloon from getting hit by meteorites, which I'm... Maybe 3 different materials. So they don't want to do too many. Take the 3 they think will work best. And they're putting it in the shirt. And then tape it so that it stays on well, except for maybe the shirt.
弦乐的好啊，不要这样。你可以再弄一个。哎，管乐它可以用。但是没有腰带来。因为他们家应该保持一下腰带。腰带是来啊。谁？没有，那是前面那个有一点点。我觉得不行。你刚刚发我了。对，我让需求最大。
你看效果一样，我们懂路，他搞压懂路。
哦。 最后1分钟。还没有填好的，还没有保护好的人来。可以。好，2个了，2个。
准备哦。一窝子，太饱了。
你看拿那个什么挖沟纤维，绝对不会。
挖沟纤维。还有哪一组还没有卸的？Ready, go. Okay, didn't pop.
Survive. Is that everyone?
还有哪一组没有试？
Did they put it in a hole?
Yeah, they said they want to try the plastic.
哦，肢解哦，
耶，没错。
肢解哦，肢解哦，先走。
Yeah. Everyone? Is everyone done? Here we go, one more
Your astronaut survived. Raise your hand. So almost everybody's astronaut survived. One of the things is you actually need something a little heavier than the nail to give it. You can try different things, like a nail and then something a little heavier to see the difference on the different sizes of impacts that it might get. And think about the materials that you use too. So you got to think about that. The group that did work. What kind of materials they use to make their astronaut if it did work, as opposed to somebody who didn't. So kind of, I want you guys, when I'm done talking to you, to sit down and kind of compare the materials you use for your astronaut with the other groups to get an idea of what might work best. That's what engineers do. They sit down and they figure out materials and they test them by sending projectiles at them and seeing what materials would work best to protect astronauts from wearing these spacesuits. So spacesuit design is not something that is quick. It takes years and years to design a spacesuit for astronauts to make sure you get something good that's going to work to protect the astronauts, depending on what they're doing, whether it's walking on the moon or Mars, or just outside the space station. So it really depends on the tasks they need to do, what type of suit they need to do. You guys enjoy that activity?
Yes.
Yes? All right, does anybody have any questions before I go? Any questions about NASA or astronauts that you want to know? Now's your chance.
Any questions?
All right, it doesn't look like there's any questions. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining